The teacher tried to humiliate a brilliant girl in front of everyone, but what her dog did outside the school shut the entire room up and flipped the whole story upside down, and the ending, no one saw it coming. Subscribe now to see how. A simple bark uncovered a truth that shocked even the school principal. Oak Valley High School had a reputation that preceded it across 3 counties. Its brick facade stood like a monument to traditional education, with its rigid rules, demanding teachers, and the particular brand of teenage politics that defined its corridors. Located in the small but affluent town of Mapleton, Massachusetts, the school had produced doctors, lawyers, and entrepreneurs for generations, a fact its principal, Dr. Margaret Wilson, never failed to mention during school assemblies. It was early September, the beginning of another semester, when a new student arrived without fanfare. Emma Mitchell entered the school office clutching her transfer papers, her chestnut hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her eyes downcast beneath a pair of thin-framed glasses. She spoke only when spoken to, providing the necessary information. In a voice so soft, the secretary had to ask her to repeat herself twice. There was nothing particularly remarkable about Emma, except perhaps how unremarkable she tried to be. "Your records from your previous schools are quite impressive, Doctor," Wilson noted, scanning the transcripts before her. "Advanced placement in most subjects. May I ask why you've transferred so many times?" Emma shifted in her seat. "My dad's job. We move a lot." Dr. Wilson nodded, though her eyes suggested she wasn't entirely satisfied with the answer. "Well, Emma, we have high expectations at Oak Valley. I hope you'll find your place here." As Emma walked toward her first class, clutching a map of the school and her schedule, students parted in the hallway, their eyes following her briefly before returning to their conversations. New students weren't uncommon, but mid-semester transfers were rare enough to warrant some curiosity. Outside the school gates, as if keeping silent watch, sat a medium-sized dog with intelligent eyes and a coat that shimmered between golden and brown, depending on how the sunlight hit it. He didn't bark or whine, simply sat with perfect posture, eyes fixed on the school entrance as if waiting for someone. A few students pointed and wondered if he belonged to anyone, but none approached him. "That's weird," said Tyler Jenkins, the school's star quarterback, nudging his friend Blake. "That dog was here yesterday too, same spot." "Probably a stray," Blake shrugged, more interested in Tyler's stories about summer training camp than some random dog. Inside, Emma navigated the unfamiliar halls until she found her first class, Advanced Mathematics with Mr. Reeves. The classroom was nearly full when she entered, and she quickly found a seat in the back row, away from curious eyes. Mr. Reeves, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and rectangular glasses, gave her a cursory glance before continuing his lesson on differential equations. "I expect everyone to have reviewed chapters 1 through 3, he announced to the class. "We'll be having our first quiz on Friday." A collective groan rose from the students, but Emma remained silent, opening her notebook and beginning to take meticulous notes. Her hand moved across the page with practiced efficiency, her eyes never leaving the board, yet somehow taking in everything around her as well. During lunch, Emma sat alone, a book propped open before her as she ate an apple and a sandwich. A few tables away, Olivia Carter, editor of the school newspaper and self-appointed social observer, watched her with interest. "New girl seems intense," she commented to her friend Rachel. "Wonder what her story is." "Why don't you go ask her?" Rachel suggested, but Olivia shook her head. "Journalists observe first," she replied, though in truth she was also somewhat intimidated by the quiet intensity Emma seemed to radiate. Days passed, and Emma's presence at Oak Valley became less novelty and more mystery. She arrived precisely 10 minutes before the first bell each morning and left exactly 5 minutes after the last. During classes, she rarely spoke unless called upon. And when she was, her answers were concise, accurate, and delivered in that same soft voice that required everyone to lean in slightly to hear. And every day, without fail, that same dog would be waiting at the gates when school let out, somehow appearing at precisely the right time, though he wore no collar and seemed to answer to no one. "You know that dog's been here every day since school started," Olivia finally said to Emma one afternoon as they were leaving the building. It was the first time she'd directly addressed the new student. Emma looked up, her expression unreadable behind her glasses. "Yes," she said simply, and then, after a pause that stretched just long enough to become uncomfortable, "He's mine." "Oh," Olivia replied, slightly taken aback by the directness. "Does he just know when to come get you?" A ghost of a smile touched Emma's lips. "Something like that." Before Olivia could ask anything else, Emma was moving away, walking toward the gates where the dog waited. As she approached, the animal's tail began to wag, the only visible sign of excitement he displayed. No jumping, no barking, just that steady tail and eyes that never left Emma's face. "What's his name?" Olivia called after her. Emma turned back briefly. "Atlas." With that, she and the dog walked away, their steps perfectly synchronized as they disappeared down Maple Street. The following week, Mr. Reeves announced a special challenge problem to the advanced mathematics class. It was an equation, he claimed, even college students would struggle with, meant to push his high school prodigies to their limits. "Take your time with this," he advised, writing the complex formula on the board. "I don't expect anyone to solve it today. It's simply to give you a taste of what awaits in higher education." The class stared at the board in collective bewilderment. Even Jason Lee, who had won the regional math competition 3 years running, looked perplexed. But in the back row, Emma's pencil was already moving, her eyes narrowed in concentration as numbers and symbols flowed from her mind onto the page. Mr. Reeves circulated through the classroom, watching students struggle with the first steps of what he knew would be a long process. When he reached Emma's desk, he paused, his expression changing from encouragement to confusion, and then, gradually, to something harder to define. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, his voice carrying across the now silent classroom, "would you care to explain what you're doing?" Emma looked up, seemingly surprised by the interruption. "Solving the problem," she answered softly. A few students snickered, assuming she was being facetious. Mr. Reeves held out his hand for her paper, which she reluctantly handed over. As he scanned her work, his eyebrows drew together. "This is quite an approach," he commented, his tone carefully neutral. "Would you like to share your thought process with the class?" Emma hesitated, then shook her head slightly. "Not really," she whispered. The snickers grew louder, but Mr. Reeves silenced them with a look. He continued to study Emma's paper, his frown deepening with each line. "Ms. Mitchell, have you seen this problem before?" he asked, an edge entering his voice. "No, sir." "Then how do you explain reaching a solution in under 10 minutes to a problem that typically requires hours of work?" Emma's face flushed slightly. "I just saw how the pieces fit together." Mr. Reeves let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Saw how the pieces fit together," he repeated. "Well, that's quite convenient. Perhaps you'd like to demonstrate that remarkable insight at the board." The class had gone completely still now, all eyes fixed on the uncomfortable confrontation unfolding before them. Emma's hands gripped the edges of her desk as she slowly stood up. Outside the classroom window, unnoticed by everyone except Emma, Atlas had appeared on the school grounds, his ears perked forward as if listening to something concerning. As Mr. Reeves handed Emma a piece of chalk, the dog began to pace, his movements growing increasingly agitated. Emma had just touched chalk to board when the school's intercom system suddenly crackled to life with a burst of static, followed by what sounded distinctly like a dog barking. The strange interference echoed through every classroom, causing momentary confusion. Mr. Reeves frowned, placing the chalk down. "I'll check what that's about," he said, heading for the door. "The rest of you, continue working on the problem." As he left, whispers erupted across the classroom, with several students glancing at Emma, who had returned to her seat, eyes fixed on her desk. "Did you hear that?" Jason whispered to his friend. "It sounded exactly like a dog." "Weird timing." His friend replied, glancing back at Emma. "Hey, do you think she actually solved it?" Jason shrugged. "No way. Reeves was right. That's a grad-level problem." But across the room, Olivia Carter was watching Emma with newfound interest, her journalist's instinct telling her there was much more to the quiet new girl than met the eye. And outside, Atlas had finally settled down, sitting once more at attention, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. What no one in class had noticed was that Blake Reynolds had been recording the entire exchange on his phone, capturing Mr. Reeves' challenging tone, Emma's discomfort, and the strange interruption. By that evening, the video would be circulating through Oak Valley High's student body, setting in motion events that would change the social dynamics of the school in ways no one could have predicted. And in the Mitchell household, Emma sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, Atlas by her side as she completed the mathematics problem. With ease, speaking softly to her canine companion as if he understood every word. By morning, Blake's video had spread across nearly every student's phone at Oak Valley High. What had begun as a simple classroom confrontation was quickly becoming the talk of the school, dividing opinions and sparking intense discussions about everything, from academic integrity to teaching methods. "Did you see how he basically accused her of cheating?" Rachel asked, leaning against her locker beside Olivia. "That was harsh, even for Reeves." "But the timing of that dog bark on the intercom, so weird," Olivia replied, her journalistic instincts fully engaged. "And I've talked to her about that. Her dog, it's hers, and it's always waiting for her after school." Tyler Jenkins approached, his varsity jacket marking him as easily as a uniform would. "You guys talking about Math Girl? That video is wild. My sister's at MIT and she said that equation would take her at least an hour." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Math Girl? Is that what we're calling her now?" Tyler shrugged. "Better than that. Quiet, weird new girl, right?" Across the hall, Emma walked with her head down, seemingly oblivious to the whispers that followed her. But she wasn't oblivious. She heard everything, each comment landing like a small stone against her consciousness. This wasn't her first time being the subject of school gossip, but something felt different at Oak Valley. The video had created a narrative she couldn't control, and for someone who valued invisibility, it was deeply unsettling. In the principal's office, Dr. Wilson was reviewing the video with Mr. Reeves. "This doesn't look good. Richard," she said, pausing the footage at the moment where Emma's discomfort was most evident. "Challenging students is one thing, but this comes across as confrontational." Mr. Reeves adjusted his glasses, his expression defensive. "Margaret, you have to understand. What she did is practically impossible. Either she's seen this problem before or she's exceptionally gifted," Dr. Wilson interrupted. "Have you considered that possibility? Her transcripts from her previous schools indicate exceptional performance. 4 schools in 3 years, Mr. Reeves countered. "Don't you find that suspicious?" Dr. Wilson sighed, closing her laptop. "I've scheduled a meeting with her father this afternoon. In the meantime, I suggest you tread carefully with Emma. Mitchell, the last thing we need is accusations of teacher intimidation circulating alongside this video." As classes progressed that day, Emma noticed a subtle shift in how her classmates interacted with her. Some avoided eye contact entirely, while others watched her with unveiled curiosity. In her English literature class, when Mrs. Dawson asked for a volunteer to analyze a passage from To Kill a Mockingbird, Jason Lee, who had never acknowledged Emma before, turned and nodded encouragingly when she hesitantly raised her hand. During lunch, Emma sat at her usual isolated table, book open, seemingly lost in its pages. She was surprised when a tray clattered down across from her. Looking up, she found Olivia Carter settling into the seat. "Mind if I join you?" Olivia asked, though she was already unwrapping her sandwich. Emma shrugged slightly. "It's a free country." "About yesterday," Olivia began, leaning forward conspiratorially. "That was intense. Are you okay?" Emma marked her place in her book before closing it. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because having a teacher publicly doubt your abilities in front of the whole class is pretty traumatic?" "Because everyone's talking about you. Because there's a viral video circulating." "There's a video." Emma's voice remained quiet, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her book. Olivia winced. "You didn't know?" "Blake recorded the whole thing. It's all over the school. I assumed someone would have shown you by now." Emma's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. A brief flicker of resignation, as if this were a scene she'd experienced before. "Look," Olivia continued, "I'm the editor of the school paper, and I think there's a story here. Not just about what happened yesterday, but about you." She paused, gauging Emma's reaction. "You're different, and not just because you can solve impossible math problems." "There's no story," Emma replied flatly, "and I'd prefer if people stopped talking about me." Olivia smiled, undeterred. "That's not how high school works, unfortunately. The more mysterious you are, the more people talk. But you could control the narrative. Let me interview you for the paper." Before Emma could respond, her phone vibrated with a text message. She glanced at it, her expression tightening. "I need to go," she said, gathering her things quickly. "Think about it," Olivia called after her as she walked away. "Better to tell your own story than have others tell it for you." After school, Dr. Wilson sat across from John Mitchell, Emma's father, a man with the same chestnut hair as his daughter and eyes that seemed too old for his face. Between them on the desk was Dr. Wilson's laptop. The video paused at the moment the strange interference had interrupted the class. "Mr. Mitchell, I want to assure you that Oak Valley High values all our students, and we take allegations of teacher misconduct very seriously," Dr. Wilson began. John Mitchell nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "I appreciate that, Dr. Wilson. Emma has mentioned that Mr. Reeves seems skeptical of her abilities. Your daughter's academic record is exceptional, Mr. Mitchell. However, her frequent transfers make it difficult for us to establish a baseline for her capabilities. Perhaps you could provide some context?" John hesitated, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest of his chair. "Emma has always been gifted. We've moved frequently due to my work in consulting, which has been challenging for her socially. But academically, she's consistently excelled." Dr. Wilson nodded, making a note. "And the dog. Several students have commented on Emma's dog waiting for her after school." Something flickered across John's face. Surprise, perhaps, or concern. Atlas has been with Emma for years. He's very attuned to her needs and routines. "I see, Doctor," Wilson replied, though her tone suggested she didn't quite. "Well, regarding yesterday's incident, I'll be speaking with Mr. Reeves about his approach. In the meantime, how is Emma adjusting overall?" Outside in the hallway, Emma waited, Atlas somehow having found his way into the school building and sitting patiently beside her. A few students walked by, pointing and whispering, but Emma ignored them, her focus entirely on the closed door of the principal's office. "They're talking about you, you know," came Olivia's voice as she approached, camera in hand. She stopped short when she noticed Atlas. "Wait, how did your dog get in here? Pets aren't allowed in the building." Emma shrugged. "He finds ways." Olivia crouched down, extending her hand toward Atlas, who regarded her with intelligent eyes, but made no move to approach. "He's beautiful. What breed is he?" Mixed, Emma replied. Mostly shepherd, we think. Before Olivia could ask more questions, the office door opened and John Mitchell emerged, followed by Dr. Wilson. Both adults paused at the sight of Atlas. Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Wilson said carefully, as I was about to mention, we have a strict policy against animals on school grounds. John Mitchell looked genuinely surprised. I apologize, Dr. Wilson. Atlas usually waits outside. He turned to Emma with a questioning look. Emma knelt beside Atlas, whispering something in his ear. The dog's ears perked forward, and he looked up at Dr. Wilson with an almost human-like expression of apology. He's very well trained, John offered, a hint of pride in his voice. Emma's been working with him since she was 10. Dr. Wilson's expression softened slightly. Well, while I appreciate that, I must insist that he remain outside the building in the future. As the Mitchells walked away with Atlas between them, Olivia trailed behind, her journalistic curiosity fully awakened. There was something about the way Emma and her dog interacted, a silent communication that seemed almost supernatural in its effectiveness. And the way Atlas had appeared inside a locked school building, that was a mystery worth investigating. The following day, the atmosphere at Oak Valley High had shifted. Students who had previously ignored Emma now greeted her with tentative smiles. In Mr. Reeves' class, the tension was palpable as the teacher deliberately avoided calling on Emma despite her raised hand. After class, Jason Lee approached her desk. That was unfair, he said, surprising himself with his boldness. You should have been given a chance to answer. Emma looked up at him, her expression guarded. It doesn't matter. It does, Jason insisted. Look, there's a study group meeting at the library after school. You should come. We could use someone with your perspective. Emma hesitated, then nodded slightly. Maybe. As Jason walked away, he couldn't explain the strange pull he felt toward this quiet girl. It wasn't attraction exactly, more like recognition. The way her mind worked reminded him of his younger sister, who'd been diagnosed with high-functioning autism at age 5. There was something familiar in Emma's averted gaze, her precise movements, her discomfort with the social dynamics that seemed so natural to others. Meanwhile, in the teacher's lounge, a heated discussion was underway. The girls solved in minutes what would take most college students hours, Mrs. Dawson, the English teacher, was saying. Instead of questioning her integrity, shouldn't we be nurturing that kind of talent? Mr. Reeves set his coffee mug down with more force than necessary. You weren't there, Sarah. It wasn't just that she solved it, it was how she did it, bypassed conventional methods entirely. And that's a problem because, Mrs. Dawson pressed, because that's not how mathematics works. There are established methodologies, step-by-step processes. You can't just see the answer. From the corner of the room, Coach Alvarez spoke up. Actually, that's exactly how some minds work. My nephew is on the spectrum and he sees patterns where others see chaos. Maybe instead of assuming she's cheating, you should consider that she simply processes information differently. Mr. Reeves's face reddened, but before he could respond, Dr. Wilson entered the lounge. I've been speaking with the board about implementing a new program, she announced, effectively changing the subject. A talent identification initiative that goes beyond our traditional measures. Emma Mitchell's situation has highlighted a gap in our approach. After school, Emma surprised herself by actually going to the library. She found Jason's study group gathered around a large table, textbooks and notebooks spread across the surface. There were 5 students, Jason, 2 boys Emma recognized from advanced math, and 2 girls from her physics class. Emma, Jason called, waving her over. Glad you could make it. We're working on the problem set for Reeves' class. Emma sat down cautiously, placing her backpack on the floor beside her. I've already finished it, she admitted quietly. One of the girls, Zoe, Emma recalled, leaned forward. Would you mind showing us your approach? We've been stuck on number 7 for 20 minutes. Hesitantly, Emma reached for a blank sheet of paper. As she began explaining her solution, her voice grew slightly stronger, more confident. The others listened intently, occasionally asking questions that Emma answered with increasing ease. "That's brilliant," Jason said when she finished. "You see connections that aren't obvious to the rest of us." For the first time since arriving at Oak Valley, Emma felt a small smile form on her lips. "It's just how my brain works." Outside the library windows, Atlas sat in his usual waiting position, watching. Olivia Carter, who had been researching in another section of the library, paused to observe him. "You're a mystery, aren't you?" she murmured, pressing her hand against the glass. Atlas turned his head, meeting her gaze with an intensity that made Olivia step back. For a moment, she could have sworn there was something almost human in those eyes. Returning to her research, Olivia pulled up Emma's academic records from her previous schools, public information, given her numerous academic achievements. The pattern was unmistakable: exceptional performance followed by sudden transfers, usually mid-year. At each school, there was mention of special accommodations that were never specified, and in each case, Emma had left shortly after significant academic recognition. "She's running," Olivia whispered to herself, "but from what?" When the study session ended, Emma found Olivia waiting by the entrance, her reporter's notebook in hand. "Can we talk?" Olivia asked. "Off the record, if you prefer." Emma glanced toward Atlas, who had moved to the library steps. "I need to get home." "I'll walk with you," Olivia offered, falling into step beside Emma as they exited the building. Atlas rose to join them, positioning himself between Emma and Olivia with subtle precision. "Your dog doesn't like me," Olivia observed. "He's protective," Emma replied. "It's not personal." They walked in silence for a moment before Olivia spoke again. "Why? Did you leave your last school?" Emma's stride faltered slightly. "Dad's job." "And the school before that? And the one before that?" Olivia pressed. "Because according to public records, you've left 4 schools in 3 years, all after winning academic competitions or receiving special recognition." Emma stopped walking, her face carefully blank. "You've been investigating me." "I'm a journalist," Olivia replied without apology. "And there's a story here. A girl who can solve graduate-level math problems in minutes, who carries advanced textbooks in subjects not offered at our school, who's clearly brilliant but tries desperately to remain invisible. And then there's your dog, who shows up at exactly the right times and somehow got inside a locked school building." Atlas moved closer to Emma, his body language shifting from casual to alert. Emma's hand found the fur at the back of his neck, gripping it slightly. "Not everything needs to be a story," Emma said softly. "Some things are private." "Is it because of how people treat you when they find out how smart you really are?" Olivia asked, her voice gentler now. "Because that video of you and Mr. Reeves, it's changing things. People are on your side." Emma shook her head. "You don't understand. It always starts that way. First, they're impressed, then curious. Then they start testing limits, asking questions, wanting explanations for things I can't always explain. And then what?" Olivia prompted when Emma fell silent. "And then it becomes about what I can do for them," Emma finished, a hint of bitterness in her tone. "How my brain can be useful, how I can be their project, their trophy. Never just me." The vulnerability in Emma's voice touched something in Olivia. For the first time, she saw past the mystery to the lonely girl beneath. "What if this time could be different?" Olivia suggested. "Oak Valley isn't like other schools. We have students from all backgrounds, with all kinds of abilities." Emma looked skeptical. "That's what they all say." As they reached the corner of Maple and Oak, Emma suddenly stiffened. Atlas's posture changed instantly, his ears forward, his body coiled with tension. Following their gaze, Olivia saw Mr. Reeves exiting a coffee shop across the street, his expression darkening as he spotted them. "Emma," he called, crossing toward them. "I'd like a word with you." Atlas moved forward slightly, placing himself more firmly between Emma and the approaching teacher. A low sound, not quite a growl, emanated from his throat. Mr. Reeves faltered, eyeing the dog warily. "Your animal seems aggressive." "He's not," Emma assured him quietly. "He's reading the room." Olivia stepped forward, her reporter's instincts kicking in. "Mr. Reeves, what a coincidence. I was just working on an article about educational approaches for exceptional students. Would you care to comment on how Oak Valley accommodates different learning styles?" Mr. Reeves looked between the two girls, clearly caught off guard by Olivia's direct question. "This isn't the time or place, Ms. Carter. I need to speak with Emma privately." "Actually," Emma said, her voice surprisingly steady, "I'd prefer if Olivia stayed. Whatever you want to say to me, you can say in front of her." Something in Emma's tone made both Olivia and Mr. Reeves look at her with surprise. There was a quiet confidence there that neither had heard before. "Very well," Mr. Reeves said stiffly. "I've been reviewing your work from yesterday's class. Your solution, while unconventional, appears to be correct. I owe you an apology for questioning your methods so publicly." Emma blinked, clearly not expecting this. "Thank you," she said simply. "However," Mr. Reeves continued, his professional demeanor returning, "I still have concerns about your approach. It lacks the foundational steps that mathematics requires. I'd like to work with you to develop a more structured methodology." Before Emma could respond, Atlas barked once, sharp and clear. In the distance, the school's intercom system suddenly crackled to life, the sound echoing across the empty playground. All three of them turned toward the noise. "Strange coincidence," Olivia murmured, looking between Atlas and the school building with heightened interest. When they turned back, Mr. Reeves was staring at Atlas with an unreadable expression. "That dog," he said slowly, "is he trained to respond to specific cues?" Emma's hand returned to Atlas's fur. "He's highly intuitive." "Indeed," Mr. Reeves replied, his gaze shifting between Emma and Atlas. "Well, I should be going. We'll continue this discussion in class tomorrow." As Mr. Reeves walked away, Olivia turned to Emma, her eyes wide with excitement. "Did you see his face? It was like he made some connection about Atlas." Emma's expression had closed off again. "I should go home. My dad will be worried." "Emma," Olivia said, catching her arm gently, "I won't publish anything about you without your permission. But I think there's something special about your relationship with Atlas, something that might help other students understand you better." Emma looked down at Atlas, who was watching her with steady eyes. "He's been with me through everything," she said softly. "When people get too overwhelming, when my brain feels like it's going to explode with all the patterns and numbers and connections that no one else seems to see, he understands. Somehow, he always knows what I need." The simplicity and depth of Emma's words struck Olivia. There was a story here, not the sensational mystery she'd initially imagined, but something more profound about connection, understanding, and the different ways minds could work. "I'll see you tomorrow," Emma said, turning to leave. Olivia watched them go, the girl and her dog walking in perfect synchronization. Two beings who had found a way to communicate beyond words. As a journalist, she sensed she was witnessing something rare and beautiful. As a fellow student, she felt a growing determination to ensure that Emma's experience at Oak Valley would break the pattern of her past. The next morning, Emma arrived at school to find a small crowd gathered around the bulletin board where the latest edition of the school newspaper was displayed. Her steps slowed as she noticed several students glancing her way, but their expressions held curiosity rather than mockery. Olivia stood at the center of the group, explaining something with animated gestures. As Emma approached, the crowd parted slightly, allowing her to see the headline, "Unrecognized Genius, How Oak Valley's teaching methods fail exceptional minds. Beneath it was a thoughtful editorial about different learning styles, cognitive diversity, and the rigid structure of traditional education. All without mentioning Emma by name, though the connection was clear to anyone who had seen the viral video. "You didn't use my name," Emma said quietly when she reached Olivia's side. Olivia smiled. "I promised I wouldn't publish anything about you without permission. This isn't about you specifically. It's about the bigger issue your situation highlighted." Emma scanned the article, noting how carefully Olivia had constructed her argument, using research studies and educational theories to support her points. It was, in its way, a masterful piece of advocacy journalism. "Thank you," Emma said simply. Inside, Mr. Reeves's class was different. The teacher seemed more subdued, less confrontational. When he distributed a new problem set, he paused at Emma's desk. "I've included some additional challenges on the last page," he said, his tone professional but not unkind. "They might be more at your level, and I'd be interested in seeing your approach." Emma nodded, surprised by the gesture. As class progressed, she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The constant pressure to hide her abilities, to be less than she was, eased slightly. When Mr. Reeves asked a particularly complex question, she raised her hand without hesitation. During lunch, Jason's study group waved her over to their table. For the first time, Emma sat surrounded by peers who seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, not just her answers. The conversation flowed from mathematics to physics to literature, and Emma found herself contributing more than she had in any social situation for years. "You should join the academic decathlon team," Zoe suggested. "Regional competition is coming up, and we could use someone with your perspective." Emma hesitated, memories of past competitions surfacing, the pressure, the scrutiny, the inevitable aftermath when her abilities became too visible. "Think about it," Jason added, sensing her reluctance. "No pressure." After school, Emma found herself drawn to the library again. As she settled into a quiet corner with an advanced quantum mechanics textbook she'd brought from home, she noticed Dr. Wilson and several teachers, including Mr. Reeves, gathered around a table in the reference section. Their hushed conversation carried just enough for Emma to catch fragments. Talent identification program, different assessment methods, cognitive diversity initiative. Emma tried to focus on her reading, but her attention kept drifting to the educators' discussion. It was clear they were talking about implementing some kind of new program, inspired at least in part by her situation. "Emma." She looked up to find Dr. Wilson standing beside her table. "May I join you for a moment?" the principal asked. Emma nodded, closing her book. "I'm curious," Dr. Wilson began, "about your educational experiences before coming to Oak Valley. Your father mentioned you've always been academically gifted, but I suspect there's more to the story." Emma studied the principal's face, searching for signs of the usual agenda, the desire to study her, test her, use her as a showcase for the school's excellence. Instead, she found what appeared to be genuine concern. "I've always seen things differently," Emma said carefully. "Patterns, connections, solutions, they just appear in my mind. It's hard to explain how I know things, I just do. At my previous schools that made people uncomfortable." Dr. Wilson nodded thoughtfully. "And that discomfort led to your frequent transfers." Emma's fingers traced the edge of her book. "People start with fascination, then move to expectation. When I couldn't explain my thought processes or perform on command, the fascination turned to frustration. It was easier to leave than to keep disappointing everyone." "You weren't disappointing them, Emma," Dr. Wilson said gently. "They were failing you." The simple acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to Emma's eyes, which she quickly blinked away. "We're developing a new approach at Oak Valley. Dr. Wilson continued. A program that recognizes different types of cognitive abilities and allows students to learn and demonstrate knowledge in ways that work for them. Would you be willing to help us shape it? Emma's instinct was to refuse, to retreat back into invisibility. But something had changed these past few days, a shift in how she was seen and, perhaps more importantly, in how she saw herself. I'd need to think about it, she replied honestly. Dr. Wilson smiled. Of course, take all the time you need. As Emma left the library, she found Atlas waiting outside as always, but he wasn't alone. Olivia sat beside him on the steps, her notebook open but untouched, as she scratched gently behind the dog's ears. He let me pet him today, Olivia said, looking pleased. Progress. Emma sat down on Atlas's other side. He's a good judge of character. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching other students stream out of the building, laughing and talking in animated groups. The article was good, Emma finally said. Thoughtful. Olivia beamed. Thanks, it's already having an impact. Dr. Wilson called me in this morning to discuss starting a regular column on educational diversity. Atlas suddenly perked up, his attention drawn to something across the school grounds. Following his gaze, Emma spotted her father walking toward them, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. Dad, Emma called, standing up. Is everything okay? John Mitchell approached, his eyes taking in the scene, his daughter sitting. Casually with another student, Atlas relaxed and at ease. Everything's fine. Dr. Wilson called me about a meeting tomorrow with the school board, something about a new program they want to implement. Emma nodded slowly. She mentioned it to me too. And you're interested? John asked carefully, clearly surprised by Emma's lack of immediate resistance. Before Emma could respond, Mr. Reeves emerged from the library, a stack of books under his arm. He paused when he spotted their small group, then, after a moment's hesitation, approached. Mr. Mitchell, he said, extending his hand to Emma's father. Richard Reeves, I teach your daughter's advanced mathematics class. John shook his hand, his posture subtly tensing. Yes, I know. We've seen the video. Mr. Reeves had the grace to look embarrassed. About that, I owe both you and Emma an apology. My approach was unprofessional. It was, John agreed, not making it easy for the teacher. Dad, Emma murmured. Mr. Reeves continued undeterred. What I failed to recognize was that Emma has a fundamentally different way of processing mathematical concepts, a way that challenges our traditional teaching methods. It's actually quite remarkable. Emma stared at Mr. Reeves, unaccustomed to hearing her cognitive differences described as remarkable rather than problematic. I'd like to work with Emma to document her approach, Mr. Reeves continued, not to change it, but to understand it. It could be invaluable for other students who might think similarly. John looked at Emma questioningly, leaving the decision to her. I'm not sure I can explain how my mind works, Emma said hesitantly. I just see things. Sometimes the most profound insights come from methods we can't easily articulate, Mr. Reeves replied. Einstein often spoke of his visual thinking, how he conceived relativity through images rather than equations. The equations came later to communicate what he already understood intuitively. At the mention of Einstein, Atlas barked once, as if in agreement. The adults laughed, breaking the tension. He seems to have opinions on theoretical physics, Olivia commented, scratching Atlas behind the ears. Emma smiled, the most genuine smile any of them had seen from her. He has opinions on everything. As they all began walking toward the parking lot, something extraordinary was happening within Emma. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of belonging, not despite her differences, but because of them. Oak Valley, with its initial rigid traditions, was bending, adapting, making space for a mind that worked differently. The following day, the meeting with the school board exceeded all expectations. Emma, with Atlas sitting calmly at her feet, listened as Dr. Wilson presented her vision for a cognitive diversity initiative that would transform Oak Valley's approach to education. Mr. Reeves spoke about the need to recognize and nurture different styles of thinking, and most surprisingly, several other teachers shared experiences with students who, like Emma, had struggled within traditional frameworks. When asked for her input, Emma spoke softly but clearly about her experiences. The frustration of having to explain processes that were intuitive to her, the exhaustion of masking her abilities to fit in, the loneliness of always being the outlier. Intelligence isn't linear, she concluded. It's a constellation of abilities that light up differently in each person. The problem isn't that some minds don't fit the educational system. It's that the system was designed for just one type of mind. The board members were silent for a moment after she finished, impressed by the eloquence and insight from a student they'd previously known only through a controversial video. "Well," the board chairperson finally said, "I believe we found our first student advisor for the initiative." In the weeks that followed, Emma's life at Oak Valley transformed. She joined Jason's study group regularly. She began working with Mr. Reeves on an independent research project that allowed her to explore mathematical concepts at her own pace and in her own way. And perhaps most significantly, she stopped trying to hide her abilities. One afternoon, as Emma sat on the library steps with Atlas and Olivia, working on the latest edition of what had become a regular column on cognitive diversity, Tyler Jenkins approached them. "Hey, math girl," he said, the nickname now carrying respect rather than mockery. "The academic decathlon team really needs your help with the physics section. Would you consider coaching us?" Emma looked at Olivia, then down at Atlas, who watched her expectantly. "I'm not great at explaining things," she warned. Tyler grinned. "That's okay. We're getting better at listening." As Tyler walked away, Olivia nudged Emma's shoulder playfully. "Look at you, becoming a regular Oak Valley celebrity." Emma shook her head. "Not a celebrity, just visible." Atlas rested his head on Emma's knee, his intelligent eyes looking up at her with what could only be described as pride. Emma scratched behind his ears, thinking about how far they'd come together, through multiple schools, through the isolation and misunderstanding, to this unexpected place of acceptance. In the distance, Emma could see Dr. Wilson showing a new family around the campus. A young girl walked between two adults, her posture and averted gaze immediately familiar to Emma. The careful invisibility, the silent observation, the weight of difference. "Come on," Emma said suddenly, standing up. "Where are we going?" Olivia asked, gathering her notebooks. Emma and Atlas were already moving toward the new family, two beings who had found their place and were now ready to help another do the same. To make sure someone else knows they belong here too. Atlas trotted beside her, perfectly in sync, a silent guardian of a brilliant mind that no longer needed to hide in the shadows. Dear listeners, we hope Emma and Atlas's journey has touched your hearts. Their story reminds us that brilliance comes in many forms, and sometimes the most extraordinary minds need nothing more than understanding and acceptance to flourish. For more emotionally resonant stories like this one, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating narratives. Find it by clicking to your left. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day, we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of human connection and understanding. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments.